Hello everybody and thank you for joining me. This is Sierra from Sierra T Designs and today I have this stunning dandelion card to show you. So let's jump right in. So I'm going to cut down my cardstock as usual. That's how I usually start my cards. And I'm just cutting a piece of Neenah Desert Storm cardstock in half to make an A2 sized card base. And I'm going to score it at the 4.5 mark. I do tend towards side fold cards as opposed to top folding cards. I'm not sure why, that's just the way I go. So that's just how I've cut this. And I'm just going to score it here in my score buddy and jump right into the stamping. So I have the large cluster of dandelions from the Simon Says Stamp Dandelion Messages stamp set. This came in the Simon Says Stamp kit for this month, which is May of 2021. And I'm just going to stamp that out and we're going to heat emboss. So I stamped out the large cluster and then I'm going to pull in some other stamps from the same stamp set and just kind of fill in the other side. There's no certain rhyme to this other than I don't want them all to be the same height or the same length. So I kind of picked out random ones of the stamp set and then just stamped down whichever one, whatever height I thought it would look good, which is why the Misti is pretty neat for this, because of course I can move it up and down in the Misti just to make sure I stamp where I want to stamp. And I am going to heat emboss, so I am using an anti-static powder tool, and I've done that a few times. You're going to see me use it a few times just to kind of help with the static, just because I do live in Canada and it can be a bit drier here, and I have some extra clinging bits usually, so I do use a fair amount of anti-static powder tool. And I think I'm going to bring in 2 more stamps, or maybe 1 more stamp. Oh yeah, 2 more stamps. And then I'm pretty much done with the stamping, and then we're going to white heat emboss. So this card is actually a bit funny because it turned out stunning. However, it's not the direction I meant to go. I actually had the plan of stamping this all on the Desert Storm cardstock, and then I was going to use the ink colors that you see to the right there, and I was going to ink blend on this panel. However, my husband walked in and was talking to me as I was making this, and he loved how this panel turned out, and I have to agree, it's stunning. White embossing on craft cardstock is just so pretty, and so we loved the color or the white embossing on the craft cardstock so much that I ended up changing the design about right here as I'm finishing up the heat embossing. But so it's kind of funny, I had the intention of blending on this craft panel, and I think I'll try that with a different design at some point, just because I think it would be a neat idea. But in this one I chose to change up the design, and I'm going to ink blend on a piece of Bristol Smooth instead, and then I'm going to add that as the backer behind that craft piece, as you would have seen from the image there. But yeah, so you can thank my husband for how this design actually came out, which is pretty neat. It was a good idea on his part to leave the craft in white embossing, and then I came up with this different idea with the colors I wanted to blend anyway. So you should, if you've watched my videos, this blend is going to look pretty familiar because I did do this in my last video. So it is Kitsch Flamingo, Spiced Marmalade, and Crackling Campfire. They turned out really stunning. I mean, all of those blends were beautiful from last week. I'm drawn to, actually all of them, really. Like, I didn't necessarily love one more than other. I mean, at the time, but it changes every time I look at those cards because they're sitting on my counter. But I thought that this would look so beautiful behind those dandelions, because I kind of was thinking this is a very like summer-esque color palette. So I chose this color palette to go with those dandelions because I just thought that it felt very summer. Lauren, who is actually a really cool lady who's like a viewer, and she's also got a YouTube channel, she actually suggested that this looks like a sunset. Then I completely agree. So I thought that I would use it with these dandelions just because it's quite a beautiful blend. And you saw that I went back and forth between the colors a few times until I got a blend that I really liked. And I am going to cut these down. So this is where the idea kind of changed. So I brought in some stitched rectangle frames, and I'm going to trim them both down because I want some craft showing behind the panels and the colored panels. So I'm going to cut these down, and you see I have my little magic mat there, and I'm using my Gemini. And I just put them through and I cut them down so they have that stitched border, just because this is a bit of a simpler card, and I really think that that stitching adds a lot of extra oomph to a card that maybe doesn't have tons of detail to it. So I just put those through and then I've taken them out. I am going to take a smaller one. So in this I used the largest and the second largest to create this, and then as you see I'm going to put them together here, and I really thought that it would look better if I had more of the color showing. So I'm going to bring in a smaller die. This is just the third of the set that I own. And I'm going to run that through as well and just take a little bit more off just so I can show a bit more of the background. I think the blending turned out stunning. I love these three colors together. I think they're so pretty. And I just wanted to show more of the color. So I ran it through again with a smaller die, and then I think that this is a better size for what I was kind of going for here. And I think it turned out super pretty. I have so many ideas with this Dandelion set of stamps that I'm just excited to jump in. So, well you're going to see the same stamp set come out a few more times here because I've got some other ideas. But and then I brought out a piece of vellum. I didn't want to cover anything up with my sentiment. So I brought out a piece of vellum. Now, when I stamp on it, it's going to be a little difficult to see. In person, I can read it no problem. However, I saw while editing this that it's kind of difficult to see it. So it says Summer Dreaming, which is a stamp from the stamp set. And I just scored the little piece of vellum so that I could wrap it around for a more continuous look. So I just scored it there, and then I wrapped it around, and then I put it in my Misti so that I would have an easier time stamping it. And I did bring in the Kitsch Flamingo as my ink to stamp with, because I don't have any black or anything in this card, so I didn't really want to bring in a very dark color, because I don't have it. So I just stamped it out in the Kitsch Flamingo, and again, I can read it in person, no problem, but I don't think on camera it shows up quite as well as I'd hoped. I pondered heat embossing it, and I kind of really seriously thought about it, but the wording, the letters are so small and delicate that I wasn't sure if I would get this quite the look I was looking for. I was a little worried that it would be a bit thick and chunky and it wouldn't work for quite the design here. So I chose just to stamp it out in the Kitsch Flamingo ink. And then I brought in a tape runner just to glue down those edges there, and I have it in place where I want it so that it can't really shift around on me, and I check it a few times. And then I just put a little bit of tape runner on it and fold it over while holding it in the right place. This is the easiest way I found. I found that if I use liquid glue for this, it shifts around a bunch, and then I struggle to get it to be where I want it to be, and then I get a little unhappy with it. But I brought in my liquid glue for this part, which is just gluing down my colored panel to my craft card base. And I say craft, it's Neenah Desert Storm, which is a bit of a different color, I think, than most crafts, but it's such a stunning cardstock. I think it's really underrated because it's such a beautiful cardstock. And I did add some 3D foam squares to the back of my panel. I really just wanted a small amount of dimension, and all of the foam tape that I own is quite thick. So I thought this is a great way to get a little bit of dimension and not really struggle with some foam tape or some fun foam or that kind of a thing, just because I really wanted a small amount of dimension. So I'm going to have to look at buying some really thin foam tape, but for now this is what I own, so that's what I used. And then I did bring in some Studio Katia Icy Sparkle crystals. These are stunning. This is the first time I've used them. They're a gem, and they have like flecks of silver glitter in them. There's a gold version as well. However, every time I try to grab it, it's sold out. But they're just so pretty. So I'm going to hold it up here so you can kind of get a better look at this whole card. And you see there it says Summer Dreaming. And that's the card for this week. I hope you guys like it. I hope you leave me a comment, leave me a like. Tell me what you think of this card. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. I have a new video every Monday, and then I join in on hops and everything else whenever I can. Thank you so much, guys, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye for now.